Thank you. Let's see if we can put this somewhere where it's, there we go. I think that. Hi, welcome everyone. I'm going to give whoever needs a second or 3 seconds to find a seat so that everyone's comfortable and we can get going in just, okay, great. So firstly, it's great to be back here. It feels like it's been, I don't think I've given a wise women since before COVID. Wow, it's almost like it never happened, okay? But it's not, right? So today's class is called, The Power of Silence and Empathy in Communication. This week, Seed, together with Gift and a couple of other organizations, have been running an initiative called the Clean Speech Project. And we've really taken a focus on clean speech, right? Positive speech, how we use our words and how that has an impact on other people and ourselves, the truth is. So I thought we'll take a little bit of a step back and look at what is speech. I never thought I'd stump you with that question. What is speech? I mean, we all know that communication is important. It is verbal communication, and we all know it's the expression of the mind. Interesting.
How we speak.
Interesting.
Verbalization of our thoughts, and it separates us from the animals.
Yes. Oh. That is definitely true. But what's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of our speech? To express our views. To express our views, okay. To communicate. What's the purpose? And I'm gonna get even deeper. Or even more basic? What's the purpose of communication? To get to what? Oh, beautiful. So Rav Wolbe actually says that the purpose of speech is to better understand and appreciate another person. Right? That is the purpose of speech. What he's telling us is the purpose of speech is to better understand and appreciate each other, which is interesting because I think a lot of times when we think about communication, we think about getting our point across, right? Communicating our viewpoints, communicating our needs, right? Communicating what's on our thoughts, right? And the truth is, I think we all intuitively understand and know how important communication is, right? It forms the core of our relationships, whether it's with our kids, whether it's with a spouse, whether it's with parents, whether it's in a professional capacity. We all know that if there's a relationship that's a little bit going through a tough patch, a lot of times the first place we'll look at is communication, right? So we understand that it is so vitally important. And I forget who says this, but I think this is the one who says that there's a direct correlation between understanding our purpose and our happiness, right? That what he's telling us here is that the more we understand our purpose and our function, the happier we will be, right? And as we were told earlier, that speech is what separates us. Speech is what defines us as human beings. It's such a fundamental part of who we are, right? And the more we understand not just the function of speech, right, but how best to use it, the more happiness it will give us. So now that we have this understanding, hopefully it's a fundamental understanding that the purpose of speech is not just to talk and to fill up the spaces and to get what's on our mind off our mind, but really to get to know other people, to get to understand them and to appreciate them as well, which is interesting why we're told that at a wedding you're supposed to sing the praises or say the praises of the bride and the groom. Why? Because when they hear each other's praises, it gets them to appreciate each other more, right? So now that we understand, hopefully, what the purpose of speech is, let's try and understand how best to use speech. So there are 2 parts of speech. Can anyone guess what they are? And it's a bit of a trick question because you might think, okay, talking and listening. Okay. You're all right. You're all right. But I'm gonna try and let me ask you this. What's the opposite of speech? Silence, right? We often think that the opposite of speech is silence, but in fact, speech and silence work best together, right? So what is silence? I mean, sorry?
Listening.
Silence is necessary for listening.
Holding back.
Controlling yourself, holding back. Tranquil atmosphere, yes. We get. I mean, silence is bigger than just.
No sound.
Delaying your anger.
No sound at all, right? No.
Delaying your anger. When you are angry, you want to speak. When you are silent,
you control yourself. You control yourself. Yes. So silence is really that space when we're speaking to ourselves, right? When we're trying to understand and really influence our inner world, right? That is really what silence is. And I think Harriet said this, that it's the prelude to speech. Is that what you said? Right? Like it's that it should be, right? It should be that space before we talk, when we kind of try and like understand ourselves, understand, how, what, if we're in a conversation where we're listening with someone or whatever it is that happens, right? That is going to trigger the reaction that is going to come next, or the speech that's going to come next. That silence really is that space where we kind of talk to ourselves and we kind of try and understand and improve our inner world, right? Because what we do when we talk, what someone said that we share our thoughts, but what else do we share? And I think it's deeper than just what's on our mind. Sorry? Yes, we're really reflecting what's in our heart, right? Absolutely. Speech is building that connection, right? And when it's done right, strengthening that connection. And when it's not done right, it's weakening that connection, right? It's rupturing that connection. Where was I at? Before I said that was. Oh, I was saying that speech is you're reflecting what's on your heart, right? When you get really, really angry, right? And you say something not nice about that person, where is that thing coming from?
Your heart.
Your heart. It's probably an underlying opinion that you've had and kept and squashed down, and then because you've lost a little bit of self-control, you're reflecting what's on your heart, and you're putting it out there. Which doesn't mean to say that we have to, when we speak, we have to say everything that's on our heart. Of course not, right? If it's not right for us to share what's on our heart, you don't have to. And if it's not right, if our person's not in the space to listen to what's on our heart, then it's also not. But what we have to understand is that when we talk, right, we are reflecting what's on our heart. So before we talk, we have to use that silence to understand what's in our heart and what and perhaps to influence and improve what is on our heart. And that's why speech and silence work best together, right? So and we see this mentioned in a few different times. For example, in Prelude it says that when a person teaches, they should teach as brief as possible. I'm going to try and keep that today, right? which basically what does it mean? It means like a skilled teacher, really a skilled teacher is someone who can give you over a concept in as short a time as possible, right? Make it as simple for you as possible, right? They are really minimizing the speech and maximizing the silence, right? That is what Prelude tells us to do if you're a teacher. And I think we are all, the truth is, teachers in anyone that interacts with other people is a teacher on some level. So it is a good thing to bear in mind that, if we can condense the speech and expand the silence, that is seen as a positive. What can we do in that space of silence? And I think someone mentioned it before. A few of you mentioned it. What is essential to do in that space of silence?
Prepare our speech.
Prepare our speech, absolutely. Anything else? Process what the other person's saying. Okay, process what the other person's saying. Excellent. What
Control
else?
our words.
Control our
Words, the words that you
absolutely control our words. Anyone else?
Maybe to reflect and understand what our response to what we've heard.
Okay.
In order to.
Okay. I mean, I think it's all great that you're already ahead of the game because you're all making an assumption that we're going to do something, which doesn't always happen in communication. What is that thing that I'm looking for that doesn't always happen in communication? Listening. Thank you. Right? Like, you know, we all. I think it's beautiful. It speaks to who you all are. You're like, of course you listen, right? But if you think a lot, bring to mind a conversation or a communication that was a conflict, right? That didn't go well. Most often, what happens there is that the listening stage doesn't happen, right? Like the two people, is this resonating with anyone? Like, yes, most often what happens is if you think about a conflict, right? That, you know, I'm sure, whatever, perhaps this may not resonate with you because I don't know if you guys have ever had conflicts, but you know, if you think about a conversation that you've had recently or not so recently of a conflict, right? Like, most often what happens is that the listening doesn't happen, right? The listening doesn't happen. Like both parties or one party is just not listening, right? So what is listening? Now this is I think one of the places where we can look at Lashon HaKodesh, the Hebrew language, and learn so much from it. For anyone that's heard me before, you may have heard me say this before, but the Hebrew language, Lashon HaKodesh, biblical Hebrew, is different than English. In English, the word cat doesn't mean anything except the fact that it's a label given to an animal that we refer to as a cat, right? There's nothing intrinsically cat-like about this animal, about this word, right? But in Hebrew, the words itself have meaning, right? And there's tremendous wisdom in the language that the letters themselves have meanings. The way they come together is they have meaning. The first time they're used in the Torah teaches us so much about the concept. There's also an idea that if you have one Hebrew word that has different meanings, there is a connection between those different meanings, right? And we see this in the words of the word to listen. What is the word to listen? Lishma, right? To listen. Now it's got three different meanings, right? And this is going to teach us about how we can effectively listen. The first one is to hear. The second one, it means to understand. And the third one, it means to accept, right? And this is, I think, three keys to effective listening, right? The first thing that we have to do, and it sounds, you may hear it and think, wow, that sounds like obvious. It does sound obvious, but it's actually really important to put into place in our lives because it often doesn't happen. The first thing is to make sure the physical conditions are met for the person to listen, right? That means that you're both in a space where you can listen, right? If you're tired or hungry or rushed or distracted, that's not going to work, right? That is going to be a major impediment to listen. Have you ever tried, for anyone that is, have you ever tried to have a conversation with someone when you're on your way into a meeting or they're on the way into the meeting, right? You can't even hear what they're saying because your mind is already somewhere else. If you've ever tried to resolve a conflict late at night when you're both tired, like it's not the best. Our best responses don't come out when we're tired, so firstly, the conditions have to be met, right? The physical conditions have to be met, and secondly, that there's got to be a quiet space, right? If there's a lot of noise around, and there's whatever, the phone is ringing, and baby's crying, the music's going or whatever, and it's just so noisy, or other people keep coming and interrupting. That's not a conducive environment for listening. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to understand that we need to meet the physical conditions for listening. Now, practically speaking, in theory, it sounds great. Okay, fine. You want to talk about something. This could be with the spouse, it could be with the child, it could be with, a friend, whatever. Like, okay, fine. Let's just drop everything and find a quiet space and talk about it. And does that always work, Phil? No, right? In real life, a lot of times when these conflict, these difficult conversations come up, or these moments come up, and sometimes it's not even a difficult conversation, right? Sometimes with a child, for example, right, and it could be a young child, it could be an adult child as well. They want to come and talk to us when it's good for them, right? They're not coming to us. The older our kids get, I think, and the truth is, even young children, they're not coming to us when we're ready to listen, right? When we're sitting there calmly, quietly with our cup of coffee, like, and saying like, okay, come, anyone that has anything to say, you can share it with me, right? That's not how it's yeah, when you sit, yeah, if you tell them, okay, I'm just gonna take 5 minutes. This is the best way, right? You tell them, I'm taking 5 minutes of quiet time, no one disturb me. That's when they'll come, right? But right, like if you said, I'm sending, yeah, if you said I'm sending like 5 minutes right now, anyone that wants to come talk to me, it doesn't often work like that, right? A lot of times, so what can we do in those situations if a person, a child, a coworker, a friend, whatever it is, someone comes to us and wants to starts talking about something that is obviously important to them, but we're either distracted or we're busy or we're just exhausted. What can we do in that sort of situation, practically speaking? Any thoughts?
Delay. Make it convenient.
So how do you delay in a way without shutting them down? The truth is, if you can say, you know what, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Let's take 5 minutes or whatever thing and do it. That would be ideal, right? If you can't, but it's not always practical. If you can't, yes, we have to delay. The challenge with delaying is that it comes with the risk of shutting the other person down, right? So how can we delay in a way that minimizes that risk?
It depends who is calling you, who is speaking with you.
Okay.
If it's an important person, you have to take it immediately. If a child or whatever, you have to.
Sorry, if you delay it, things get less, but what was really bothering you is then not as profound, I think, with time delay.
Right, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Harvest actually says that you're not supposed to try and calm someone down in the heat of the moment. Why? Because it's ineffective, right? So sometimes
if
delaying,
you delay the conversation, the heat will slow down.
The heat will slow down. Yes, the emotions calm down. So that could be a positive, but let's think of it from the side of let's say the person coming, right? Imagine if you open up to someone, you start having a conversation, and they're like, "I'm too busy right now to talk." It feels a little bit like a rejection. So how do we sort of, yes?
I've started when I can making appointments with my children. If they come to me with something, then and I can't deal with it right now, I can tell them this is really important to me. I want to give it the time that it deserves. Let's make an appointment, which actually gives it more value.
The
challenge is remembering to keep the appointment.
Yeah. I think that is a very, very powerful. And that's what I was going to suggest. That is a very powerful way to deal with it. Is when you turn around to the child or the person and say, "I want to hear and I want to be able to give it the attention it deserves. Let's set a time where we can do it." Right, and you set a time right then. You don't say, "Okay, what about speak to now?" You say, "Let's set a time." Right? Would 8 o'clock tonight work? Okay, or would 9:15 tomorrow work? And then yes, we have to keep to that time, right? We have to keep to that time. And I think with technology nowadays, there are ways to do that. Put that appointment into your calendar and say, "You know what, this is the time when we're going to do it," and then you get a reminder or whatnot. But think about it from the point of view from the person receiving that, right? What message does it send? I don't think so. I think it sends the message that you're important, not just that it sends the message that you're very important. You're important enough that I want to give you the space where I can deal with this in a proper way. I can give you the attention you deserve. Right, as opposed to like, let's just quickly discuss it now, get it off the table, and then I can get on with my day. Right, like you're telling the person. This applies in all relationships, whether it applies in the way we speak to our spouses, our children, our whoever it is. It applies in all relationships. What you're telling the children, and it has to come from a sincere place that like, I want, you're important to me. I want to hear what you're doing. I want to hear it properly. Right, I really want to hear you out. I think it gives the message to that other person that you are important enough to me that I'm going to make an appointment and clear that time to sit and listen to you properly. Yes.
As a wonderful person, I'm at the early stages of Alzheimer's. No matter how much something is distressing me, which is important, I still could forget it. Forget what it was I wanted to talk to you about.
Right.
Speak louder,
Write
please.
it down.
Then social media and doing it, saying, let's try and find out what basically what it is, and then say, let's talk about it later. Then the other person come back and say, they know what they wanted to talk about, so they bring it up. That's happened to me so many times. I wanted to unload, and I know I needed to unload, but I can't want to talk.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very valuable point, right? That get a little bit of the context so that you can, because I think it could happen to anyone really. That you say I want to talk about this, but then you forget what's on your mind or whatever. So I think that is a very, very valuable point. Get the sort of like at least the headline, right? The headline of what it's about, so that you can
Prepare
prompt
yourself
them.
to respond.
Yeah.
As long as somebody then doesn't know it's not a problem, because if someone reminds you what it's about, you can bring everything back, but you can't actually get that first connection.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, because I think that's a very, very valuable point. Yeah.
Like sometimes children or adults, sometimes people find it very hard to express themselves, and then when they're ready to express themselves, it's a rare moment. And for some people, it's very common. When I have a child and everything's fine, everything's dandy, and all of a sudden, when it's really inconvenient, people want to express themselves, and it always happens. And if I don't catch that moment, it won't come back, not because they don't remember, because they have to be open to express themselves. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
I feel like I have to just drop everything, at least for a short amount of time, give it some attention, but get the headlines out. Let's open up crack open the nut type of thing, get to it. Then they can deal with it maybe more, but because it's so hard.
Yes. I think that's the point, right? Like when the child comes and I think also when the child or child adult comes and they want to connect with you right then, right? So we have to give them a bit of a connection, but we don't have to give a full connection, right? But when you sort of say, okay, whatever, what's going on, and it's like the thing, and they can give you the headline, and you can actually like stop, look at them, and sit and and say, I really want to discuss this. We're gonna look at this together. I'm here for you. This is when I'm gonna do it. Then and we follow up with that. And I think also the thing to bear in mind is that the more we do it, the more their trust with us builds up. Because at the end of the day, I think we have to show. I'll make it appropriate to parenting, even though I don't know if it applies everywhere. I'm just, for the sake of the example, I'm gonna do. I think the more we show that we are trustworthy and we are going to listen to them, the more the trust builds up, and the more they're capable of waiting a little bit longer to offload, right? The more that, when they see, and I think I said it with children, but the truth is it applies to anyone. The more, think about it. If you have a boss, for example, right? And you know that when you have a weekly meeting or whatever with him, or when when you catch my right point, he's going to sit down and actually listen to you. You can wait for that meeting, right? You know that I can show that I can wait for the meeting because I know that it's going to get dealt. Right, I know that's going to get dealt with. I suppose if you have someone who's like constantly on the fly, and like whenever you're asking him for something, he's just like whatever, and like you have much more of an urgency to speak to him, to connect with him, because you don't have that confidence that I'm going to get listened to, right? And that's what we can give to other people, is that confidence that I am going to listen to you, and I'm going to find the space and the time where I can do right by you, right? And the more we do this, especially if it's a new thing that you're introducing, you might get kick off, right? The first time you do that, like, no, I need to talk to you right now. I need to deal with it right now. I need to deal with it right now. But the more you kind of say, I'm here and I'm gonna give you that time, and then you do give them that time, right? That's the thing that's important, that you do give them that time, and you make that time time where you're actually distracted, focused on them, right? You're actually listening properly. Then the more they have the confidence that we're going to listen to them, and that they can wait as well for that time. But yes, you're 100% right. We should give them a little bit of that connection, right? A little bit of connection. About the point that I was trying to say is that don't worry if you can't get the physical conditions right then, right? It happens. It's real life. The way to deal with it is you give them a little bit of connection then, and set a time where you can actually have the distraction-free time where you can listen to what they are. I'll share with you an incredible story. Robert Horowitz from New York, who is an incredible rabbi who has anyone here heard of Rabbi Yaakov Horowitz? Yaakov Horowitz? Right. So he's done incredible work on child safety, and he works with teens, and he's phenomenally successful with working with teens. And someone once asked him, "What's your secret?" Like, well, you work with the hardest kids, right? The kids that are closed, don't want to talk to anyone. How do you get them to open up to you? So guess what he says? He says, first, every time when a client walks into my room, what I do is I unplug my phone. Right? Tiny little thing. He says, what am I showing the kid then? That you are more important to me than anything else, right? Anyone else. And we could do the same thing, right? We all, anyone that has a phone, right? Someone comes to talk to you, put it on silent, right? Or switch it over, or turn it over. It's such a small thing. Oh, that's fantastic. She's turning her phone on.
Anyway.
Right. So I think the simple thing of doing this when you're talking to someone, it's like a simple thing, but you know what it tells the other person? My attention isn't here anymore. My attention's with you. And it's such a powerful thing that we can do. And I think, years ago, if I think back to my parents' generation, they weren't as distracted by the phones, right? And it's for those of us that are in my sort of stage of life where we are distracted by our phones, it's a reality, right? We have to acknowledge it, but we also have to work with it, right? And we can sort of say, I'll turn my phone over and I'm going to communicate. It's a simple way to communicate to your child that I'm with you, or your spouse, or your friend, or whoever it is that's talking to you. I'm with you. I'm not with anything else. It's like a visual message, a strong visual message of I am here with you right now. Okay, so that's the first one. Is the physically having the physical conditions set up so that you can catch what they're saying, right? Then there's a second part, right? And this is understanding, okay? And understanding comes in two parts. It's understanding what is and understanding what isn't said, right? And this is a huge topic of how we understand what is said and how we understand what isn't said, and how we sort of measure if the reaction fits what the kid is, what the person is talking about. I don't know if anyone here has ever been in a situation where someone tells you something and it's so obvious that the reaction doesn't match, right? Like they're saying like I can't believe you didn't tell me that we're going to leave 10 minutes earlier, and they're like at a 10 reaction or a 9 reaction, and you're like what's going on, right? But that is a huge cue for us, right? That what's going on here is there's probably something going on underneath, right? If someone is reacting to something small with something big, then there's probably a reason why, and that is a cue for us. Hold on a second. I understand you're upset. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else that's bothering you? Is there anything else? And so a lot of times when we do that, we can actually find out what's actually going on. What is actually going on? And I actually had this situation with one of my kids this morning. She found out that we were leaving like 10 minutes earlier than what we thought, and she like exploded. And I was like, what's the matter? Is there anything else? And she told me what was going on, that there was something going on in school that was bothering her. And like she was agitated, right? So she was agitated, and then that was the thing that exploded. But it wasn't that was really exploded. That was really bothering her. It was the other thing. we can get to that sort of understanding when we understand what's not being said as well. So it's not just listening to what is being said, but also listening to what isn't being said. Now do you see why you need step number one, right? Because you can't catch that if you're busy distracted, right? You're going to miss so much if you're distracted. The other thing to bear in mind is that it's okay and it's actually good to question and to ask for clarification, right? Not obviously not too intense, but like if you're trying to figure out, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Ask, right? You are like I to me it sounds like this. Is that correct? And you can ask for clarification and ask for what's going on and what's I'll share with you a couple of stories as well. Rav Issa Zalman Meltzer, the story is told that before anyone would come into him, he would take a few minutes, right? A few minutes just to ground himself and to sort of say, you know, the person that I'm meeting is a human being, got a neshama, a soul, a divine soul, and I want to be there to listen to them. And I think it's like such a, you know, again, doesn't have to take long. It's like 3 to 4 seconds to just sort of ground yourself and sort of say like, I want to meet that person. I want to hear what they have to say and respect them for that. 3 things to bear in mind when we are trying in this understanding phase, and we hear this from we learn this from Abbas Shammai tells us that we have to greet every person with a pleasant face, right? And the 3 words that he says is savior, our face, right? So which means that our face, the truth is our face always has an expression, right? We have to be conscious of the expression that's on our face. Panim, right? You have to be facing that person. Now I would say that it depends, right? On you sometimes it's easier for someone to open up if they're not face to face, right? Like if you're going for a walk, going in a car drive, right? Especially if you're talking to someone who doesn't want to, who's finding it difficult to open up, it might be too intense to be face to face. But if it's not such an intense situation, then look at them, right? Be face to face them. Again, it's a thing of giving them your attention. And Yafos, it has to be a pleasant expression, right? Think about trying to talk to someone who's got an angry, closed expression on their face. It's going to shut you down, right? Whereas someone who's listening with an open expression, it gives a pleasant expression. It gives a clear message of what the person is done. Okay, so we've done 2 steps so far, right? We've done again. These are the words that Ishmael means. It means to hear, physical act of hearing, and we have to set up the conditions to do it. The second thing that Ishmael means is to accept, and to understand, which is take, you know, once the physical conditions are set up, trying to understand what is the person telling me, what are they not telling me. What am I missing here? What am I catching? Asking for clarification. If it triggers something that they've told you once in the past, make that connection. Remind them. Again, it's another powerful way of telling that other person that what you say to me matters so much that I remember what you say. And the third one is accepting, which is also not necessarily such an easy one, right? To do. So let me ask you a question. What do I mean by accepting?
Repeating back what they said to you.
I would put that in the understanding phase, because accepting goes a little bit deeper than that.
Even if it's hard to tell you what they're saying, that you accept what they say, even if you don't know what they say, accept it and just walk away and not respond to that.
Okay.
Or maybe that you were wrong in your.
Sometimes that can lead to that you were wrong.
Well, can you accept without agreeing?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw that question open to the room. I mean, the people in the
You can
room.
accept they've got a different viewpoint to you, accept that they've got something that's hurting them, but you may see it differently to them, but you can accept that they, you know, that they see it differently to you, you've got different perspectives.
Right. It's almost like accepting. It's almost like agreeing with all or part of the other person's point of view, right? And again, it doesn't necessarily mean this can be really hard, especially if the person is telling you something about what we did wrong, right? then it's hard to it can be hard to accept it, and we could feel like they're wrong, but it's about accepting that this is what it's like for you, right? And you know what? And sometimes if you can listen and understand, if you can do the first two steps, it does make it easier. You hopefully will be able to come to a place where at least you're able to say, wow, if this happened and that happened, I can understand why why it is like that for you. Right. And again, like, you have to be careful with this, because like sometimes like I understand that's how you feel is a very what do you what sorry? Yeah, it comes across as like, I think you're talking. Sorry? Yeah, I don't agree with you at all, but you know, I can understand that's how you feel, right? But I think this third one, this understanding, has to be genuine, right? You can't fake it. Right? People know whether you accept them or they don't. You can't like say and again, I think this is perhaps where the part of what happens in the silence, right? And that phase is where we kind of like work to that acceptance, right? That they can have a very different perspective on things, right? And their perspective, based on what they experience and who they are and whatever, is understandable. We can accept that perspective. And what happens is that it provides the opportunity to come together, right? When you can accept that this is your reality, right? Accept that this is what it's like for you. And sometimes that acceptance leads to saying, wow, you know what, I was wrong, right? And sometimes that acceptance leads to, wow, this is what we're going to do differently, right? But we have to have that acceptance, and then we can work on coming together again. Sounds easy or hard? Hard. So why do it? Let me ask you why. Why should we do it? Yes. Part of life. Move on, yes.
Because it wasn't hard to do it, so it's hard to feel good when you've done it, and as you said it, saying, accept what they've said, move on,
you know, if you think about it,
Otherwise, they hold a grudge.
It's look part of how we'll talk a little bit about empathy before we go and which ties into the acceptance phase as well. You think about it, and again, I don't know if anyone here can relate to that, but like, think about the time and energy you spend in a fight with someone. How much time and energy do we spend? Like how much time and energy do we spend in a fight? Now ask yourself a question. Is it worth it? Yes. Is it? What's harder, to spend that time in the fight and the energy, or to spend that time here? And it's the mental effort. It's the emotional, spiritual effort. It really is a spiritual effort, as we'll see later. Because what I think, especially the acceptance part of it, is that emptying ourselves out of our ego. But is it worth it then? Yes. And a lot of times in life, we have a choice, and it doesn't often present as a conscious choice, but it's a subconscious choice. Do I put a little bit of energy in at the beginning, right? Or do I put a lot of energy in at the end to fix it, right? And you could think about this in lots and lots of different areas, but in communications, it is absolutely right. You can spend a little bit of time finding that time to have that conversation, and a distraction-free conversation. You save so much time and energy and negative emotions later on. So I think that's the way to look at it. Is it hard? Yes, it's work. It is absolutely internal work that we have to do, but it's work that's going to save us time and energy later on. And I think the other thing to bear in mind also of why this is so powerful is that Kamayim ponim el ponim, right? We're told that just like water reflects what reflects for things, our hearts reflect to other people, right? So when we open ourselves up, right, to listening, to accepting, to understanding the other person's heart opens up as well, And that I think is really, if we come back to what speech is in the beginning, it's about knowing, understanding, and appreciating each other, and that's really what it does. It's when we can open our hearts and allow space to hear and accept what the other person's reality is for them, then it allows them to open up that space to do it for us as well, and it builds a place where we can accept and understand and appreciate one another. So one question I often get related to this session is, how do we show empathy? So before I give an answer, I'm going to throw it open to you. How do you show empathy?
Smile,
Okay.
nod,
Hug.
Listen. Yes. So I'm going to say again, it's again that there is I think your answers again are showing the type of people you are, which is empathetic people, right? The first step is have empathy, right? I think when we have the empathy, it shows. Right, so the first step really is to have empathy, and it's such an important trait in Judaism, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our leader, was only chosen to be the leader after he had shown empathy. When he went out to the Jews in Egypt, he didn't have to. He was comfortable in Pharaoh's palace. He didn't have to go out to the Jews in Egypt, but he went out because he cared. My brothers are hurting, I'm hurting. He showed empathy. The little sheep walked off and he had empathy. Wow, I wonder why he walked off, right? He took that moment to put himself in the world of that sheep and say, you must be thirsty. He had that empathy, and that was when he got chosen for leadership, right? And it's the same thing for us. Empathy is so very important, and it takes a certain sense of humility, right? Especially in I think in those relationships that are nearest and dearest to ours, right? The closest relationships, right? Whether when it's family and close friends, right? Like it takes a certain sense of humility, of taking yourself out of the picture and saying I want to understand what it's like for you, and that I want to understand your world. I want to understand what it is in your world, and that's when we have that empathy, I think it shows, right? That empathy, then we can give that empathy over to the other person, and the other person feels it, which goes back to what we were saying earlier of command panim, like when what our hearts reflect one another. Okay, so let's try and pull it all together. We started by saying that communication is so key to the way we connect to other people, and speech is there for us to understand and appreciate other people. And we spoke about speech that when we get it right, when we understand what it is and how to best use it, it improves our relationships, it improves our relationship with ourselves, improves our own happiness. It is so key to what we did. And there's so much, right? Sometimes you think about people like, oh, they're very articulate, they're great communicators. They're not a great communicator. That's not true. It's a skill that can be learned, and there's so much more there's so many more skills that we can incorporate to make ourselves powerful communicators, and to be able to communicate powerfully and to get ourselves heard. I'm actually going to be running a course. It's a four-week series on how to get yourself heard, on how to become a powerful communicator. We're going to be covering how to lay the foundations, what to do when the other person's wrong. Never happens, right? How to have hard conversations, and how to fix the conversations that go wrong. I'm launching it on. It's starting in middle of June, and I'm launching it on Monday, the May 31st. I'm going to have a week for people to register. If anyone wants to register, if anyone is interested in hearing more about it, I'm going to send around the paper. You can just put an email address or a contact number, a name and contact number, and I will get in touch with you details when it's on Monday.
But you can also communicate without speaking, can't you?
Absolutely.
A look.
100%.
Step back.
Yep. And again, that's it's a huge and those are skills that we become aware of and develop, right? What is our non-verbal communication like, right? And non-verbal communication is huge. 100% right. 100% right.
If you want to avoid the argument, you can write a letter, better than speak.
And read it over before you send it to make sure that you actually want things again. Any questions, anyone? Yes.
A lot of us are very busy and kind of spend all day firefighting, running from one thing to the next. And while I'm sure that empathy is there, it's kind of got buried a little bit. Or how would you, what can we do to help us tap in, find that empathy again?
Right. So I think your question is a very, very good question, right? The truth is, and depending on which phase of life you're at, some seasons of life are just busier than others, and it can be. And I think when you can set up that distraction-free time, where you can, and I think it's also about compartmentalizing, right? I think that's a little bit what Shabbos teaches us is before, you know, the idea that 6 days a week and 7th day, 6 days a week you should work on it, you should complete your work on the 7th day is Shabbos. Who completes all their work before Shabbos? Whose to-do list is empty before Shabbos? No one, right? But the idea there is when you go into Shabbos, my to-do list is gone, right? It's as though everything's off, and it is such a powerful tool. Like if you can say to yourself, right, this is the distraction-free, whatever else it is, whatever, I mean, you know, if there's an emergency, but like nothing else matters for this particular space, right? And I think what helps us do that as well is if we have that container for that space, right? Like, you know, I'm now going to spend, again, it depends on what your time is, depends on what the thing is, 5 minutes with you. I'm now going to spend half an hour with you, and like nothing else matters for it. And sometimes we have to be creative on how we do it, right? Like if if your house is very noisy, maybe you have to have that conversation in the car, right? If you're whatever it is, it's you got to be creative, but it starts with the awareness that we need to give that people the empathy, and then setting up that physical space, the physical conditions, right? It's not necessarily just a space, it's physical conditions where you can give undivided attention. Yeah.
I think it's also important, as she was telling me too as well, to not forget to be kind to yourself, because when you're not kind for yourself and you don't have time for yourself, you don't have time.
Yeah.
It's also frustrating.
Absolutely, 100%. To have, and it also sometimes starts with having empathy for ourselves, compassion, empathy, and again, like I appreciate that you said that, because I think it's very easy to listen to a class like this and walk out and feel like, oh, I'm doing this all wrong. Like, no, that's not the intention of the class at all. It's not the intention. Firstly, I want to say, like, I think you are all amazing that you take time out of your busy days to come and to learn. And yes, give yourself a big pat. It is like life is busy, it's demanding, it's distracting. It really is. And the fact that you made that commitment is you should give yourself. You should walk out of here and say, wow, I did something to become a better person today. And if there's one thing that resonated from the class, one small thing, take that away. I was reading a fascinating book that I think gives this idea of 1% better. It's book's called Atomic Habits, but it's very, very interesting, where he says that he gives a few different sports teams that were losing, and their managers came in and they said, what's our goal? Our goal is to just do 1% better each day. Right, 1% better each day. You think 1% better? What's that? Right. So if you think you're giving your kids like a minute attention, so that's like, what is it? A minute and a second? No, not even. I don't know what it is. Right. Whatever it is. Right. Like 1% is nothing. But what happens is that 1% day on, and those teams went on. There's two different teams. There was one baseball team that went on to win the championship 2 years running, which was unheard of in American baseball at that point. And I think it was also a team in the French cycling competition. So that's it. Just take one thing. If one thing resonates, one thing, make 1% better. But if you do that consistently, you think. If anyone wants more information about the course, please give